Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Unreal Engine 4 tutorial in game art. In this episode we're taking a look at creating a decay effect on our materials. So I've got a sort of Silent Hill type effect where it's going from a tiled wall into a rusty wall here. I also put it onto the floor as well, so it's going from grass to a sort of gravel and dirt. Okay, you can see it's changing the normal map as well, and so forth. Now, this is what we can go for our end result, and we'll be using the material functions and material collection parameters to help us achieve this. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So to get things started, we need to create a material function for this to work, as well as a material parameter collection. So let's start off with that last one there, the material parameter collection. Go to Add New, Materials, and Material Parameter Collection. And I'm going to call this one my decay parameter underscore col. And this is a collection of parameters that we're going to associate to our material. So in here we need a scalar parameter, and default values can be at 0, but its name we're going to change from scalar to decay. This is the only parameter we need for this, so we can click save and we can close it down. With that done, we now need to start work on our function. So right click again and go into materials and material function. And here we're going to call it decay underscore function. Open it up. So a material function So a material function works like many other functions. It's a set of code that you can reuse and duplicate in other places. In this instance, a material. So we're going to put in a load of nodes here, set up some parameters in a material function, leading to an output result. And this allows us to duplicate this code multiple times. Now, why are we doing this, I hear you ask? Well, the reason why is because I want to have the same code work for the diffuse map, so the colouring of the actual texture, as well as the normal map. So also that is the lighting data of the texture. And I want them to be in sync. So rather than reuse this, retype out the same code or copy and paste, and get really messy really quickly, I'm just going to make a function that keeps it all nice and tidy in one little simple place. So we need to get to an output result eventually, but we have to do a load of things beforehand to get there. So the way this works is we need to take two textures and lerp between one and the other. So let's start with that as our basic starting point. So here let's start with our lerp. So type in lerp and you want linear interpolate, and that's in the maths section. Now linear interpolate will take an A value, a B value and an alpha. The A value and the B value will refer to some textures. So here I'm going to put in two textures, like so, and we're going to hook those up to our lerp. Now these two textures, what they mean is when the alpha is at 0.5, it'll be blurring halfway between these two together. 0.25 means it'll be mostly in the first one, and then less so in the second one, and so on and so forth. Now, because it's a function, the benefit of using a function means that I can turn into some things into parameters. What that means is I can make other materials that use different textures but using the same code, which is really flexible and saves me a lot of time down the road. So what I'm going to do is set up some inputs here. So I'm just going to delete what we've got here and just type in the word input, and you'll see function input. Now this input will add a pin to our function eventually. So when these are like functions, it will add a pin as an input side, and we want to change the name of it. So when you click on it, go to the details panel on the left hand side, and you can change the name of your input. So here I'm going to call this one texture 0, and I can change what it is. So it's not a vector 3, it's going to be a texture 2D, and we can plug that into our ALERP. Oh wait, it has to be a vector 3. There we go. There we go. So it does have to be a vector 3 for the lerp to work. So we've got a vector 3 there, and we want to copy that again. And I'm going to call this one texture 1 and plug that into B. Now here you see preview. This allows me to set up a default value for my inputs. So here I can put in a texture parameter, texture sample parameter, and I'm going to name these ones accordingly. So this one's going to be texture 0. And I'm going to scroll down, and the default texture I'm going to use for this is the tiles, concrete tiles underscore D for diffuse. And I'm going to copy and paste that to below. But my second texture is going to be rust. Again, rust underscore D. So these two textures. Oh wait, I need to change the name of this one first. Texture 1, and then change that back to tiles. There we are. So we've got these two texture parameters. Now a parameter is another way of doing inputs. So where these ones add pins to your function, these just add it into the details panel on the left hand side here. So you want both to happen, because we may want to, in some cases, choose a texture. Other times we may want to make a texture or make a material to go into it. So we want to have both options available to us. The last thing we need is an alpha, and that alpha is going to come from a noise texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just plug that lerp into my output result, and we're now going to work on our noise. So the noise is going to work very similar to this. So I'm going to actually copy and paste, actually not copy and paste, sorry. Just search for texture. We want texture object parameter in this case. And it will make sense in a second when we get to it. So I'm going to call that noise. And that's going to go into a world aligned blend. No, world aligned texture. So world aligned texture basically tiles the texture, as it says there, in world space. So it will take the texture and apply it to all sides of every object in a world space. So look at individual faces and tile it for that face. So it saves a lot of work, and it will always work for our noise in this case. So the noise, this parameter texture object, the texture we're going to use is a default one that's built into it. So I'm going to go into here and just type in noise, and I'm looking for this one, T Perlin noise underscore M. I'm going to use that. And here we'll have texture size and world position. World position, that'll be the easiest one to do first. We'll do world position. You'll see the coordinates for world position there. And texture size is going to be a scalar parameter. So what I'm actually going to do for this one, as well as the noise, is I'm going to add in 2 more inputs that I've got over here. So here we're going to go into input. And drag that into texture object 2D. I'm going to change the name of this one to noise. And I wanted to get another input, and this will be the size of the noise texture. So we'll do texture size, and this will be a scalar. So we're going to change that to input scalar and plug that into texture size. And the preview for this is going to be a parameter again. but this one will be a scalar parameter called size. And plugging that into my preview there. I'm going to give size a default value. So with it selected, I'm going to go over to the left hand side here. You'll see default value. I'm going to give it a default value of just 100. Do 200. No, actually 100. Do 100. And I'll leave it as such. Okay. So this thing is basically going to just what it's doing is basically wallpapering our noise texture all over the place. Okay, with the world line texture. With that in mind, I want to go look at this noise being generated and look at its black and white values, and then from that determine when it should be swapping between the two. So I'm going to take my XYZ texture output, and here I'm going to type in mask because I only need one of the values, and the one value I need, we could just use R for this one. And the reason why you can use any value is because we're using a black and white image. That means R, G and B are all the same as each other. So R is equal to G and that's equal to B and so forth. So we can use either one we like. When you're dealing with just black and white images, they're all the same. So with it one selected, we're going to go into an if statement. So type in if, and this is going to go into B. And A is going to be our decay value, which we'll go to now. So here I'm going to do a parameter again, a scalar parameter, and I'm going to call it decay. Decay, there you go. And default value is 0 will do just fine. And in here I'm going to put that into an input function and plug that into my if. With it selected, I can change the name of it over here to decay. So what this is going to do is we're going to eventually feed it a value of decay between 0 and 1. And what this is going to do is we're going to go through this noise texture and pick up that value. So if we say today is 0.2, this is going to choose all the values that are 0.2 and lower and round them up or round them down. So to do the rounding up, I've got A is greater than B and A is lower than B. I'm going to hold down the 1 key and left click to add a 1 float value. I'm going to plug that into A and B, and again A is less than B, and I'm going to do A is greater than B is equal to 1. I think it's that way around. If not, we have to go back and swap it around. So 1 goes into A is greater than B. Okay, with that done, our if statement can go off into the alpha. We're going to click save and close that down. With that function made, we can now create a new material. So right click and go to materials and material, and we'll call this one decay material. And open it up. So decay material, we're just going to use that function we just made. So just type in function and you'll see material function call. And it doesn't look like much, that's because we haven't defined what function it's calling. So with it selected, go to the left hand side details panel and choose your decay function from the list. And you can see all those pins arrive for our function. Now one thing that I want to fix, because I'm OCD like this, I want my pins to be in the correct order that I want them to be in. So I want my texture 0 to be at the top and so forth. So that's easily fixed. All you have to do is go into your function and you find your inputs, and you'll see down the bottom of the left hand panel it says sort priority 0, and basically the lower the number the higher it is in the list. So that's 0. I'm going to make this one 1, so it comes directly after that one. Then I want decay to come on after that, so that's 2. Then we have noise 3, and then finally size of 4. Click apply and then save, and we see our pins in the correct order. So quite simply, the result is going to go into our base color, and we now need to feed it some values. So one thing you'll see is a load of errors coming up, and that is saying it's missing all these inputs. Okay, now we did set up some defaults for this one, so we need to tell it if it hasn't got a pin connected, use a default. So again, go back to your function and find those inputs, and you'll see a little tick box saying use preview value as default. Tick that for every single one of them. So it means when we haven't got anything connected to the pin, it will just use a default value that we've plugged in over here. Apply and save, and we should go back and see the error messages have all gone. So by default, it will use those values we set up already. If we want to change those values, we can also go to the parameters over here and see them ourselves. However, I would avoid changing them here because it can get messy and could bug out and crash Unreal. So be aware of that one. But fortunately for us, we don't need to use it. So with the decay function, we've got our texture 0 and texture 1 already done in the default. We're going to leave that as is. But the decay, we will set up in a material parameter. So here I'm going to right click and do a parameter search. And I want to find collection parameter. And I can choose which collection of parameters in. A decay parameter collection. And I could choose which parameter I want to use. Decay. This will be plugged straight into the decay input. Next, I want to change the texture size. So here I'm going to put in, hold down 1 and left click, plug that in, and I'm going to put in a texture size of 2000. This number you can tweak to get however you like. We'll show you the difference between each of those tweaks. Apply that, and we're done here. Look how tidy that is. That's because all our work is in the function over here, and the benefit of that will come very soon. But first, let's test this working. So to get it working in the game, we need to tell it when we want the material to start changing. So first of all, let's apply a material to the this object. To do that, we don't want to drag the material directly onto it, because what that means is that it will lock anything with the same material to have the same effects and properties. What I want to do instead is right click and use a create material instance, and I will use that instance instead, like so. Now the instance works exactly the same, except you can't change any of the blueprint. For that, you have to go into the material parent. With that done, we're going to go into our level blueprint to test that this actually works. So for this, I'm going to do begin play. But this could be tied to an event, a trigger, whatever you like. I'm just going to do begin play. So on begin play, I'm going to do a timeline. Add timeline. And I'm going to name this one Decay Time. And then double click on it. In here, I'm going to click on the F icon up here and add a float track. And I'm going to type in decay value, like so. Now, whilst holding down Shift, I can click once and then click twice. With the first point selected, I want my time to be 0 and my value to be 0. With the second one selected, I want my time to be however long you want it to take to decay your material. In this case, I'm going to do 20 seconds. And my value, I'm going to be as 1. If you hit these icons to the left of these inputs over here, we can get it all into view. Now here's our timeline. You see it goes off into the dark grey. That's because it is extending past the actual length of the timeline. The length is here. We want to change this to match the amount of time it takes. So I'm going to change that to 20. And there you go. Click compile and go back to your event graph. Now you can see that float track's added an extra output pin here saying decay value. We can now plug this into our material parameter collection to change and tweak the material. So right click and do scalar parameter, and we'll choose set scalar parameter value, plug it into the update, choose the collection we've got, which is decay parameter collection, the parameter name, in this case decay, and then finally our parameter value will be plugged into a decay value. Click compile and close that. So now if I push play, hopefully we'll see it start transforming. And notice how it's slowly fading between them based on that noise texture. You can see it creeping across the whole of the object. Yeah. There you go. So if I change that texture size, let's show you what that does. So if I go into my decay map, and this texture size here, if I change this to say a higher number, let's do a low number, let's do 20. Apply that. And push play. Now because the value is a lot smaller, it means the texture is a lot smaller too, and therefore it will tile a lot more. You'll see the tiling happening there. So the smaller number means the smaller the texture in the world. I found in this case 2000 is quite a nice number, but this will tweak and change based on the size of the thing that you want to be decaying. Click apply. So as I said, we want to show you the benefit of using the function. Now as we showed in that demo, there was no normal map on it. That's because we haven't done it here yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this decay function and paste it below, hook up the result to the normal. Now this is where I can plug in my own textures that I want over here. So I'm going to simply just do T and T, and I'm going to choose the tiles normal as the texture 0, and this one would be the rust normal into texture 1, and I'm going to copy these two values here and plug them down here. And it's that easy to add another function to it. Click apply. So we've got really a quite complicated texture, material rather, but it doesn't actually look that complicated because we haven't got spaghetti going everywhere. Close this, push play, and we'll see the normal map will also change alongside with the actual diffuse map. Okay, so how does this benefit us? How can we do it to make spin-off ones? So we've got a tile one here, but what about dirt and grass? Well, this is a material instance. If you open this up, you'll see on the right hand side I can choose texture 0 and texture 1 as well as a noise. If I were to tick these two on, texture 0 and texture 1, I can change what values I want to hear. So rather than change them in this one, I'm going to make another instance of that by right clicking the parent one, going create material instance, open it up, change the textures to something else. Need grass diffuse and gravel, I think it's called. Yep, gravel diffuse there. Now you see the normal map hasn't changed yet. That's because we haven't given it on the list here. So I'll click save on here and close that. Go back to my parent one, and here we give the texture samples like so. Rather than use texture samples, we can use texture sample parameter 2D. Click on this, and we're going to go and call this one normal 0. Try it again, normal 0, and this will be swapping basically what we've done here. So I could scroll down, I could choose a default texture here. So tile N, that one. And I want to do the same here. Change the name of it first to normal 1. And the default value to use the rust normal. So now we've got these normal parameters set up. Because they're parameters, we will see them now on the children instances. There you go, normal 0, normal 1. I could turn these on and get access to the other normals that I want. Like so. Click save, close it down. Now I can click this floor one and drag my grass decay onto it, and you'll see the grass will now decay as well. And that's all there is to it. If you've liked this video and you want to continue supporting me and my endeavours in creating loads of tutorials, head over to patreon.com/RyanLady, where you get access to videos nice and early, just like these fine people have done already. Now you also get other benefits too, so don't forget to check them out and see if anything takes your fancy. Likewise, if you have any suggestions or about what videos you want to see, leave a comment below in the channel, as well as don't forget to subscribe and give us a like. So thank you very much for everyone for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this one and learnt some things, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.